in-depth race recaps.
He's shown speed, he's shown dominance at other racetracks.
Pit stops and strategy.
Hell yeah, boys. Let's go. Race strategy, man.
Fantasy racing insights.
Talk about being a team in the summer. We did it. Good job, boys.
Your weekly home for everything Ryan Blaney and Team 12.
Good job, Timmy. Here's some many more, fellas. Thank you.
This is the Team Blaney podcast.
Let's go race for a championship.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 194 of the Team Blaney podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This week, we are here to break down Ryan Blaney's run in the Grant Park 165 at the Chicago Street Course. Steve, welcome back to another episode, and welcome to everyone that's watching live on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok this week. We are excited to talk about this second race in the stretch of road and street courses that are happening over the summer here in the NASCAR Cup Series, and a fun weekend, I think, for Ryan Blaney. Honestly, a very newsy week for Ryan Blaney from start to finish, and it finished off with a classic blue-collar drive and adversity and coming from behind and amazing points day that we'll talk about toward the end of our recap. But I thought it was a lot of fun overall this week for what may be the final time that this race is held in Chicago, but I hope not the last street course race that we have on schedule moving forward.
There's already speculation about next year, like what they're going to do, and I hope they just continue to do this. Every 2-3 years in a spot, try another spot, 2-3 years in a spot, try another spot. This was great. This was the first time without rain, and it showed how good the racing was and how good a setup they had for the track. A lot of the guys really liked the track and the way it was set up. And, I'm excited to hopefully San Diego next year, hopefully. Then all the Ron Burgundy jokes I can handle for a week.
That's a really good point. Both races here previously, though last year wasn't totally in the wet, first race pretty much was. People were saying like, well, maybe the racing was only exciting because of the wet weather tires and how that impacted strategy and the way people could handle and things like that. I thought while the Jeff Gluck poll was only in the 60% range or something, which surprised me. Right. I thought outside of maybe that last run, maybe people being disappointed with how a caution was handled at the end, I thought it was pretty exciting. And again, I think our viewpoint sometimes is skewed by watching the action on the in-car camera. And we have seen since TNT's taken over, and I don't know if Prime had just set such a high bar, like people immediately have been kind of dogging on TNT and their coverage. And they actually did miss like a really key moment in Ryan's race that upset a lot of people as well. But if you don't tune into the in-car camera every week, but the weeks to do it are definitely on the road courses, because there's no way for TV to cover everybody, just the way a road course is set up. But you can watch, Ryan carving his way, unfortunately, from the back to the front at one point. But it makes it really exciting and tense. And I mean, it's just, you kind of on your edge of your seat at some points, especially when it got down to the end there. So our viewpoint sometimes might be skewed on how good a race was, but I thought there's plenty of action, plenty of opportunities for passing. And really, if you did watch Ryan's race, he made some pretty amazing moves. And we're trying to figure out, I don't want to say what has changed, but, we gave some stats ahead of the Mexico race where Ryan in the next gen car had an average finish of 17th and really wasn't qualifying well, which that didn't really change too much, and really wasn't racing too well. He did get a top 10 in this race last year, but there's a lot of kind of chaos and things that happened throughout the race too. But what we've noticed from Mexico and this race is he's figured something out. Something is different. And I can't even say it's a Penske thing as a whole. I mean, Joey did end up finishing ahead of him. Austin had some trouble in the race that actually in the end benefits the 12. But something, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's aggression, because if you watch some of these moves, it seemed like, if I could pinpoint anything, it was almost just like he had real confidence in the car and confidence in making moves and putting it places that maybe he wouldn't have before. And it was, I don't know, it was impressive. I'm still kind of pumped up over what happened, and it wasn't even a top 5 run. You know what I mean?
No, but I've always been confident in his ability on road courses. I just want to put that out there right away.
It's just the.
I
And
think
I agree.
sometimes
It's just the stats.
I think
The statistics don't prove.
I think that's what I'm saying. I think statistics are deceiving. That's what I was going to say. I think
Yeah.
that you know this year alone, 6 DNFs. You take those statistics, you figure out what tracks they happened at, and you add them into the averages, and they're going to screw up the averages. You know what I mean? I think the one thing that you're right about, though. I think there is something in the cars. I think literally they have figured out a couple things on the car going from right-handers to left-handers, on a track. And this week coming up will be a definite show of that, because Sonoma, way different than any of the other road courses, because it's almost like a sprint going one direction, turn around, and sprint coming back the other direction, with a lot of there are a lot of turns, but they're not really heavy duty turns. It's a real technical but real fast road course. So this week will definitely show off that. And look where he finished last year at Sonoma. So like I said, I think there's some things that have happened basically in the last year and a half with the program itself, and found a little more speed and a little better handling more than anything else is what it is. I'm getting in and out of the lefts and rights, and picking up the accelerator better. So, and getting good runs, and yesterday was like definitely an example of that. If you didn't have the in-car camera, you got to get it.
The NASCAR Xfinity Series race, that was one I think last year that actually was one of the only ones to ever go through without any rain impact. No rain or weather impact in their race. Shane Van Gisbergen was the story of the weekend and has really been the story for the last 3 years there. But he didn't come with challenges. There was a strategy call that didn't match up perfectly for them, that it resulted in him having to come back through the field at the end, making it very exciting. And then we come down to a teammate restart at the end that that I wanted to get your opinions on this, because there were some people, maybe even Connor himself, that were like maybe felt they were rubbed the wrong way by the contact or whatever. I thought it was a great restart. I thought for an Xfinity Series race or restart, that was nothing. I thought that, if anything, was clean, and just was fun to watch and kind of gave you that entertainment value that you're looking for.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that by NASCAR standards, what we saw there was nothing. Because we've seen guys go down to turn one and wreck each other on a restart like that. Connor got taught a lesson. And it really wasn't that Shane was that much better. The lesson was, when your spotter says clear, you block. You didn't do that. I had Josh on at that point. I usually listen to Josh or Tim during the Xfinity races. I definitely was going to listen to Josh down the stretch with everything that was going on. And coming off the restart zone through what is turn 12 toward the front stretch, because the restart zone is actually before they get to 12. He clears them for a second as they're on the front stretch. And Connor does not move enough in front of to kill the momentum of SVG. So, and he said it in the post-race interview, Connor himself, that I learned a lesson learned or whatever, next time better. And that's what it comes down to, is it's a young guy going up against a veteran, and the move that he could have made, or he probably needed to make, he didn't make. And next time he will make that move. I'm not saying he had to swerve all the way over either. He just needed to cover a headlight or so to kill the momentum a little bit of the SVG, because once S through the corner with them, they both were side by side, and that's where the ball game ended for him. Because then you can, once you're side by side, you can rough each other up a little bit. That's NASCAR, right? That's what SVG's been trying to learn, the last year and a half, since he's really been running a lot of full-time stuff. So I think more than anything else, it's just Connor, when he heard clear, he needed to realize he was clear enough. Just move it a little bit. He didn't have, like I said, have to swerve over there. He just needed to move it a little bit to the side to kill the momentum of the 9 car, and he didn't do it.
Yeah. And those are the kind of lessons that I think Connor's going to be a superstar. He just has that it factor, the pure raw talent, And in his only, he won a race last year before he went full time. He's won, races this year. If I had any choice, it would be to keep him in the series one more year, just to keep learning the racecraft and keep learning these types of lessons before he makes a jump to the Cup Series. Shane, though, Shane said kind of felt like his time in the Xfinity Series was a little bit of a waste because the cars are so different, even though he can clearly win in either car. But all I have to say is, after this weekend, anybody that was out there crying and complaining about the 88 car making the playoffs, he's one of only, 3 or 4 drivers that have multiple wins this year. And if 6 races make up out of the 36 races in a season are this style of track, I don't think you can say somebody doesn't deserve it. That's a big chunk, a big percentage of the races in a year. And I won't be shocked if he wins this weekend, and I won't be shocked if he wins the Roval, and I won't be shocked if they make a decent playoff run because of it.
Well, think about this weekend, and then Watkins Glen still too, right? And I think Watkins Glen for him is unfinished business, and I think did he win the Xfinity race at Sonoma last year? The Xfinity race, I believe. So, he's got all this, but if he wins those 2 more before he even gets to the playoffs, look at all the playoff points. Like I said before, the scenario is survive the first round, right? Get yourself to that second round of 12, then win the Roval. Now all of a sudden you're into the next round. Well, think about it. If he wins one of the next 2 road courses, that's 15 points. He gets himself to the Roval round. He has 20. Wins that one. He has 20 points going to the round. Plus any stage wins that he gets here or there. They're positioning themselves really well for what you have to do to get to, and then at that point, it might be a matter of Talladega is in the last, in the round of 8. So then it might be a matter of somebody winning Talladega who's not in the round of 8, and then all of a sudden there's 2 spots that can get in on points. And then all of a sudden somebody has a bad race here, and then somebody else has a bad race there, but he doesn't. All of a sudden they could be all the way into it. And that's crazy a little bit, but the scenario's there, the path is there. And then you're going to hear some crying when the road course guy figures out a way to get to Phoenix, right? So I'm happy for it. I love it. I love the fact that they've done it, and the fact that they committed to him. And I know he brings good sponsorship with WeatherTech, and so forth. But he's shown that he's worth every penny, and Josh being on the box or on the spotter stand for him has been huge, because Shane's getting better at the ovals too when no one's looking. And that's coming too. Some top 10s and top 5s there are coming.
Yes, for sure. He's definitely going to be somebody that we're going to have to watch and contend with the rest of the year. Unfortunately, this isn't the Team SVG podcast, and while I enjoyed talking about it, we have other things to discuss, and that has to do with Ryan Blaney's race weekend and all that kicked off in practice and qualifying at the Chicago Street Course.
So first off, practice, we're in Group 1 last week because of the Matrix and what happened the week before. So this next week will be better. But got Ryan's scanner on, and he says the 11's blown up already on the scanner. And I'm like, they haven't even run a lap yet. They're just out there getting to the, to the running. Tim's the oil all over turn 6. They had to do a caution for the cleanup. Only 5 cars at that point completed a whole lap. It took over 15 minutes for them to clean everything up, get that car out of there. So they had about 10 minutes to the practice session. So we had Mule, Dave Nichols, Tim Fidoa, and then it's Matt Long, or Matthew, is the 3rd spot this past weekend. And this is a normal 3 guys they usually have. 3 laps in, Ryan's single lap time is P5. Of course, P1 is the 88. 4 laps in, Ryan jumps, or is P7 lap-wise, but he gets closer to the faster time as a couple guys kind of populate that area. The 7, the 19 missed turn 4 completely. And it's a good thing there's like a little runoff area in there that they can go into. And lap 6, Ryan is just a little less than 1 second back, but it's like of the 24 car actually at this point, and he's P5 now on that. Lap 7 here, it's 0.862 back, P4, so he's actually gaining on it a little bit as he runs more laps. SVG misses turn 4, so no matter how fast you are, guys will make the mistakes. Ryan had the top overall lap average in the practice. Now, SVG missing turn 4 kind of messed that up for SVG, but, and it was P5 on the single lap. So, pretty encouraging. The only bad part is that we're going to qualify in Group 1 also. So, that Group 2 will be faster. But the fast 5 in his group are the 24, the 88, the 13, which is Will Brown, the 4, and then the 12. Five lap average too. Just the 5 lap average was P3. That was the 88 and the 24 were the two guys in front of him. So that was pretty promising. But then the 24 damages his car at the end of the practice, and that's not good. Group 2, the 23 was the fastest car in there. But now at this point, they integrate the 2 sessions times, and Ryan's individual lap is P17 overall. Now it's only 0.917 back, but you've populated all those other guys into the equation, So we get to qualifying, and on Saturday's qualifying, Ryan is going to run 2 laps here, and he ends up being P5 in Group 1. So practice, and the SVG, of course, way ahead of everybody with an 89.656. So, like I said, Group 2 should be faster. And 10 minutes to go in Group 2, Ryan is like P14 at that point. 23 spins out in the second group. 5 minutes to go, he's all the way back to P16. SVG gets pole, Ryan P17. 12 guys in Group 2 were faster, and that was just being on the track later with the rubber getting picked up and so forth. So just kind of goes to show you that just when you're qualifying really makes a little bit of a difference. And then this next week coming up, we'll be in Group 2, so hopefully we can just keep that up, keep staying in Group 2 for the rest of the season. So we get to Sunday, and we've got stages of 20, 45, and 75. 6 sets of tires and 5 sets of wets, or as Corey LaDroit likes to call them, sprinkle tires. Fuel run of 39 to 42, and I kind of found that interesting because there was some talk of people doing a one pit strategy where they would go into stage 2 and split it somehow and then just stay out there. But
yeah,
there was some tire fall-off, so I think that kind of made.
Yeah, in the end, a couple did do the one stop, but only a couple they weren't super successful with it, but a couple ended up with some top 10s out of it. You mentioned the wet tires. Yeah. Looking at the radar, there's about 2 different lines of thunderstorms that were coming at the track, and they're basically saying, hey, we're probably going to have a dry stage 1, but at some point in stage 2, this could be a possibility of rain. And just shocked that even after the race was over, they said it only ended up sprinkling, but I don't know, something at least went NASCAR's way as far as keeping like that weather system out of the area. So pit stall 38, which is real early in pit road when they come off the track. And you got the 42 behind him, the 41 in front of him, which doesn't, like the way these pit strategies are going to go, really doesn't end up being a factor unless they all come down at the same time. Here's a fun number, or a fun bunch of numbers. The 4, the 5, the 9, the 10, the 11, the 23, the 24, the 47, the 48, the 78 all had something in common. You know what that is, right? Unapproved adjustments, but a lot of them got into the wall or more in practice, testing those boundaries. But yeah, it was rough. Yeah. But luckily that Ryan picked up, both rows picked up a spot on the start because of that.
Yeah, I will say this much too: the 78. We didn't bring this up in qualifying here because it's not, but excellent job by the 78, Catherine Legg, putting it out there, putting a lap out there. It came down to 0.2 of a second, I think, and she put it in the show because there were 41 cars, and she knocked somebody out. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and I saw a little chatter as you do you do see in some of these situations because of who the driver is that, well, she only did that because Corey Heim had a broken toe link when he made his lap. Well, yeah, Corey Heim drove his car into the wall. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. She did too. She didn't have a clean practice or anything. So, or a clean couple qualifying laps. She got into the wall herself. But when the pressure was on, she made it happen. And she ends up with a pretty good day too in the end.
Yeah. So right away at the beginning, we got news of the 24's clutch slipping on pace laps. And Tim gets on there. They talk about here's an interesting thing. He tells the predetermined time at the end of the race is going to be 8:10 their time. So they're already thinking there's weather going to be coming, or at least they're planning on it. Lap 1 was short to P16 behind the 99. The 71 actually takes the lead early in the race here. The 34 passes us in 11, and we're back to 17th here. Lap 3 is when this thing happens. You know, I wanted to make a fun of Connor, Carson here, but I really shouldn't, because this happens to a lot of guys.
Yep.
And the only thing is the way he handled it and the way other people handle it are two different things. He snapped the thing around and just totally blocked everything. The 70, 99, the 3, the 34, the 35, the 13 were all involved there. And Ryan gets by it, kind of. Ryan hits the front left of the car, and then he gets hit from behind in the left rear corner. Not enough damage. Like, you know, they were sitting there for a red flag for a while. People ran over, I guess, to take pictures, to take back. Once they do go green, they're checking for damage and so forth, and didn't really see anything. Tire rubber, nothing. So they were able to, so the 77 couldn't even get back to the garage without tearing things up. He was on the hook on the tow truck, and I think the fender opening cut the strap on.
It was bouncing around and everything. Yep.
Wow. So, the left front was buckled up a little bit, so the hood was kind of buckled in that area near where the louvers are, air intake there. But Tim tells Ryan to check the steering and the brakes when they do get to go a little bit of speed here, and they don't see any problems. So John says, "Let's stay out." A couple cars pit, but Ryan's P11 here, and Ryan chooses the right hand lane here. The restart lap 6. He's behind the 1. Battling the 1 really hard here, and the 1 passes, so we're in P12. But by lap 10, 71's leading. Ryan's 12th. Lap 15 here, only about a half a second back of the 1. So I think we're actually faster than him, even though we're behind him. At lap 16, we're flipping the stage. So we're going to go ahead and pit here. And it's a 11.160 stop, which for a backward pit stop is an excellent pit time, really. And you noticed there was actually a new crew member, or they had not new. I mean, they had a different guy on the rears, right?
Yeah. So Zach Price is the normal rear changer on the 12 car, and this time it was Jeffrey Wall.
Jeffrey L. Wall.
So
that was kind of cool to see. He handled it pretty good. Like I said, I think it might have been a vacation. To tell you the truth, sometimes the guys really have something going on, and they but pretty good job by a different guy on the team there, and they get him out. Lap 20 here, the 71 wins the stage, and Ryan's sorted back up to P16, and now they're going to stay out at the end of the stage. 3 cars in front of Ryan pit, so he's up to P13. Everyone else in front of him had stayed out here. The 88 and the 54, the 16, and the 22 pitted before the end of the stage, and that's places 9 through 12 in front of Ryan. So that's kind of interesting. Some of the guys who ran right in front of him. Ryan chooses the right-hand side here. We restart lap 24 here. Sorts out to 13th in a tough battle with the 5 car. And lap 25 here, we passed the 42 to get to 12. Now, he's behind Joey at this point, and Joey's behind the 33. And it's really kind of weird because to me, Joey's being too nice to the 33. I don't understand why. They're both faster than the 33. And I think Ryan is laying off a little bit to try and let the 22 make his move that he would make, but just up. So at lap 30 here, at lap 27, we passed the 33 to get to 11 finally. Lap 30 here, the 21 is stuck on the track, and there's no yellow for a little bit, and then it finally, some cars pit, and then the yellow comes out in P9. They were calling on the radio like maybe we should come to pit road if we can get there before it closes, but we don't know if they're going to call a caution or not either. And the 21 they was trying to pull away. But,
this is something to keep in mind the rest of the way. Is what we saw in the Xfinity Series race and what we see in this Cup race is NASCAR holds on to the yellow flag for sometimes like way longer than you would think they would. And though there's a controversy at the end of this race when they do that as well, that when you see some of the video of what happened, it's kind of shocking. So, but they tried to, in NASCAR, there aren't local cautions, but that's almost like what they were treating it as. And it was interesting, but it almost like every week it brings up these cases of are questioning whether they're consistent or not. But just keep that in the back of the mind because the 21 is one of them. I think the 4, like there's some other guys, the 47 at one point where they have incidents and where you think there'd be a caution and there are cars going by. It's in some of those cases and they don't throw a caution.
So Jonathan says we're going to plan for a number 1 here. 7-1 pits from the lead here. Ryan stays out, gets up to 8. The 88 assumes the lead, and I think it was the 16 was in P2. The 8 was in P3 at this point. Ryan chooses the left-hand lane. The 22 is going to be to his right. But restart at lap 33 here, clears the 22, gets to the 7th here, passes the 8 in turn 8. Now, I wrote that down because the 8 spun around. And I think he loses his lap even at this point because he's one of those guys that gets stuck there and couldn't get turned around and has to wait for people. He was on the outside of Ryan when it happened. And at first I thought, Ryan might have caused that because I'm looking at in-car camera. I'm not looking at and TV finally did show that they were separate of each other. The 8 just lost it. So Ryan's up to P6 here. At lap 37, we pass on the 1 car to get the 5th. At lap 30, we pass on the 60 car to get the 4th. Now, Jonathan's discussing when to pit with Ryan, trying to keep their track position. So the thought initially is we want to keep track position, maybe pit, before the end of the stage. Jonathan then says, let's plan to run the stage out. Let's just go ahead and go for it. Lap 43 here, the 54 and 88 pit. Ryan's up to P2. The 16 assumes the lead. He's staying out at this point. Now, he's the leader, though, too. So pit road does not close until he crosses the start finish line, on that lap. So lap 44, the 16 does pit. Ryan goes all the way to P1 here. So, the next lap, Ryan, and I wrote this down. Right before they get back to the start finish, the 8 comes by Ryan. Ryan gives him his lap back. Like old school, kind of like he's coming and they just kind of let him go. And, I think he had fresh tires too, because I think he ended up pitting with it. So he gives him his lap back, but wins stage 2. So, perfect. Now it's a matter, you're going to be back in the muck a little bit, but we've already shown some speed, so it's going to be kind of fun to watch this next segment.
And considering they didn't get like the stage points at the beginning, and really outside of the win, they don't have a ton of playoff points. This actually was Ryan's 4th stage victory on the season. So he has a total of 9 playoff points stacked up right now. So, there's 2 things that they're going for. Yeah. One, they're at a point, they were at, and they still are, a points deficit in the overall standings. But just the more playoff points you can get, especially after you get that win, they're crucial after you get out of the first round of the playoffs as you reseed every time it goes through those rounds. So I thought it was a great call, especially in a race that could have chaos at the end, to be able to guarantee you're going to get those 10 stage points plus a playoff point on the day. Why not do that and then roll the dice and make sure you kind of try to attempt to stay clean the rest of the day.
Yeah. So Jonathan asks, we're still looking for rear drive, right? Ryan, yeah. So it's quickie yellow. They're pitting here, and Jonathan and Ryan talk about getting the stage win being a good decision. They actually talk about it on the radio. So Ryan for this choose cone is P23, and the restart at lap 48 here. The 19 is leading at this point, and in this first lap here, we passed the 51, the 35, the 10, and the 4, and get ourselves all the way to 18. Then at lap 49, past the 7 car to get to 17th. At lap 50, passing the 33 car to get to 16th. And at lap 51, past the 20 car to get to 15th. Now, I think at that point, there wasn't really anybody really in front of him at a good distance, because he starts to kind of clip off these turns like pretty good, and then he gets right to, what would that be, turn 11, and pulls the same thing that Carson did. Now, when he does it, he hits the right-hand side into the corner and then shoots straight across and kind of catches a glancing blow as he turns the car enough. But it punctured the right front tire from what they said on the radio. So I posted this video on TikTok this morning for everybody who hasn't seen it yet, and then posted it on Facebook and Instagram too. So if you haven't seen it yet and you're listening to this and you want to go back, it's there now. They did not cover this at all during the broadcast. I think you said that during the next pit sequence or something got pointed out. Finally, they realized that he lapped down. He does immediately dive, once he lets 2 or 3 cars go by, dive over to the right-hand side, get up the hill, get to the pit lane right there, because luckily it happened right where it happened too. So he didn't have to drag a damaged car.
Yeah, I mean, Chase Briscoe, I think, cuts a tire either earlier or later in this race where he missed the pit entry and did have to come all the way around, and the tire did shed off the car and more damage. So super lucky that it happened where it did, and that he knew right away. I mean, he comes on the radio right away and says, I have to bring it in. I have to bring it to you. So thankful that happened. But you could hear in his voice that, he knew he was clicking off some great laps. And it's like just kind of that, like, man, I really think I had a shot here. And I was a little bit deflated too, because that run there, he made some pretty bold moves and points past like multiple guys in one turn. And I was like, this is on. I mean, like you say, you're really confident in his skills at the road courses. I'm a little bit more reserved about it. And I was like, I was totally glass half full at that point and excited about the way he was doing it. And then that happens, and I was like, of course, something had to happen.
So he's P29 when he does get back out there, and a lap down. And at lap 55 here, we're running behind the 5 car, who's in 11th place at that time. So I'm trying really hard to watch and then trying to figure out where he is on the track, whether relative to other guys, in case there's a pit sequence, or maybe he gets his lap back at least. And then if that happens, but at that point, I think he's still a lucky dog until lap 58, the 10 becomes the lucky dog. The 10 ends up a lap down. Ryan's chasing the 10. And it's funny is he's about 4 to 6 seconds a lap faster than the 10 though. So he is chasing him down. Yep. And then at lap 60, we get a caution. What's that?
He was in sight of him. He was going to pass him in the next couple turns.
That's what I was about to say, because this caution happens at lap 60, and he was literally, he was right in front of him. And if he would have had a couple more turns before the caution, he probably would have got to the lucky dog spot. But now he's 29th here. They're pitting when it's open, putting on scuffs, and then saving a set. And it's quickie yellow, so they have to, just hustle this up. The 43 is also a lap down now. I wrote that down because now that's who we're racing for the lucky dog. So for this restart, Ryan chooses the right-hand side here and restart lap 63 with the 88 leading. And Ryan kind of gets smashed from both sides here on the restart a little bit. The 2 and the 22 have problems here. And then at lap 65, there's finally the caution for the 2. Now, Ryan's in the lucky dog position. He's up to 27th at this point because of the carnage. And they're going to come in. They fit tires, fix the damage. They're going to be at the tail of the field anyway, so they take their time, make sure they get it done, get it fixed up, whatever it is they need to fix. Then
This was a little stressful for me because
yeah.
because of I think it was a quickie yellow as well, and Ryan had to catch up first all the way to the back of the field, then get the okay to make the pass, the free pass, get all the way back around again, then get to pit road, fix the damage, then get back and all the way back around again, and he just catches up with the back of the field before the restart. Also, shout out to the two. I was screaming at my television for somebody to tell the two to stop because to get Ryan to get this caution. So he did eventually. I don't think it was for that reason, but he did. So you don't say Cindric ever does anything for Ryan. Here you go.
Yeah. He catches, you're right, he catches the tail of the field right at turn 11 there before they turn up the straightaway for the restart area. And I tried taping this. It's about 10 and a half, 11 minutes long, this next segment here. And it is just pure Ryan. It's what Ryan does, right? A restart lap 66, tail end. Tim tells him every car in front of you is a spot, and right away passing the 66, the 99, the 10, and the 7 to get the P23 that's lap 66. Lap 67 here we're passing let's see, the 78, the 19, and the 17 to get to 20th. At lap 68, passing the 35 to get to 19. At lap 69, we passed the 9, the 23, the 42, the 51 to get to 15. At lap 70, we passed the 20 to, I don't remember what turn it was, but the 20 did a little spinorama, and he went blowing by him up to 14th here. And on lap 72, we passed the 38 and the 5 to get to 12th here. And then we get the lap, basically the last lap caution for the 51 after the white flag. Ryan finishes 12th, the 88 wins. And real quick about the caution thing.
I want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, my thoughts are really, I don't know, because part of me is yes, there's a safety concern. Definitely you hear him on the radio saying, I need help. I think he needs help because the car wasn't going to move backward, part of it. Because he climbs out of the car. That's another thing. You watch the video that they post later on. He climbs out of the car. He looks pretty good. He walks around the back of the car, walks over to the sidewall to stand there while the emergency vehicles show up. I think there was time crunch concerns, not with the sun, but with the rain. I think they were afraid the rain was going to come in. And if you know how long a caution takes for a lap or two to re-rack them and everybody to have their quick yellow and pit, that's 5 to 10 more minutes. And then you're going to have the melee. And although sometimes the melees are fun when you're not involved in the melee, like if Ryan gets back out there and he's P12 and then he can get 3 or 4 more spots on it, yay. But also we've seen situations where Ryan gets back out there 10th or 12th and then gets caught in the melee, right? And gets smashed up and finishes 20th. So I think in this regard, I think that's really what it really came down to, is they already knew who was going to win, and they just want to kind of make sure that they didn't soil it with that, waiting an extra couple seconds, and really it wasn't. They said 30-some seconds from the time the crash happened to, on that road course, looking around, trying to figure out who's where, trying to figure out where it happened, that could take 15 to 20 seconds of it to begin with. So, and then throwing the caution once you realize the car can't move or back up, it's another 10, 15 seconds. So I'm okay with it. I'm one of the rare people that's okay with it. I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to argue that, they should have thrown it right away, because all you really wanted was the drama at that point if you did that. So I mean, if the race, if it does go caution before he takes the white and the race restarts, I think there's about a 70% chance that SVG doesn't win the race. I think because you have the 54 who's had nothing but people chattering in his ear that, hey, you've made 100 starts and you haven't won yet. You're supposed to be, the next best thing. Yeah. I think he sends it. You have the 45 who's on the freshest tires, who was catching everybody just like he was last year. So I think that's the thing. Anyway, it doesn't happen. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. This is my beef with the whole thing. Go ahead. I don't think those guys catch it on a restart, because you're going to have a restart. It's 2 laps, and I think that Shane was toying with the field the last 10 laps. I
don't think they do fairly. I think somebody just Ross or Austin Dillon's it or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
I don't think
Yeah.
they catch him straight up. I think somebody is desperate. The 45 is desperate, has not won a race yet this year. The 54 hasn't won a race in his life yet in the Cup Series. I don't think
Yeah,
they
yeah.
fairly catch him.
Fairly, you're right. You have a point. And maybe, and like I said, maybe that's why they didn't. Maybe that's part. I mean, they're never going to say that, but maybe that's why they didn't, just because they didn't want it to be like that. You know, the guy earned it on the day. He took a strategy he took the type of strategy we've seen Larson take with road courses, where, oh, heck with it, I'll just win the stage, not flip the stage, do whatever we know. Oh, we get caught in the back. Guess what? We'll just pass everybody. We're just that good. And they did that, and he did that. So I think he earned this victory.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with how the race ended in general. My beef here. So NASCAR's explanation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think they'll clarify it again tomorrow on Sirius XM in the morning. They usually have a race official come on and discuss it. But after the race, they said they had eyes on that corner. They saw the car in the tire barrier, but they said in race control they missed the impact. Mm-hmm. So, like they had most of the race, they wanted to wait and see if the car could reverse out of there and get going again or not. And once they realized that he couldn't, and I think there was even some smoke started coming out of the car because it did, I think, catch fire at one point. That's when they decided, we're going to throw the yellow. What I heard from, I think, the radio, and then maybe even on the teardown a little bit, they said, so that was their explanation, but they're saying, why don't they have somebody in that turn? Well, they did. There's a person standing there that almost had the flag ripped out of their hand. They had a passing flag up. As this car went screaming 90 plus miles per hour without brakes, because the brake rotor had exploded all over the track for one, and hit some cars as they were passing and destroyed the car into the tire barrier. They said that while they have those folks in the turns, only thing they're allowed to say on the radio is turn 6, turn whatever. They're not allowed to give their opinion on what has happened.
Yeah, just to tell them to look, basically. Look over here. Look at us.
The only thing I'll say, and this will be the argument all week, is just that when these types of heavy crashes happen on any other track, they throw the caution immediately because they say safety is of the utmost importance. We need to check on that driver. Now, their excuse is that they didn't see the impact. All they saw was the result of it. So I can understand that. But the fact that somebody over there can't come on the radio and say, like, this was like a massive hit, and maybe that's still a judgment call. Maybe you don't trust somebody to know when something really was a massive hit, but it's just another one of the situations where it's not a good look. I'm sure tomorrow they're going to come on and say, we're going to take a look at it and try to improve for the next time. Not every caution is the same, yada, yada, yada. They'll say that, but watching the videos, it was just, I told you, it was just like jaw-dropping, shocking, the rate of speed that he went into that tire barrier, and no caution was called immediately. So it is what it is. I'm happy with how the race ended, but still, it was just crazy.
He hit the sidewall pretty hard too, really, going down into there to try to slow and scrub speed. He was, he didn't have much control over what was happening, but he tried really hard to keep it from happening. But everybody's going to have an opinion on it. That's just kind of the way I felt, because, like I said, it was like an extra 10 or 15 seconds maybe that. But the thing is at that point too, that the race is over and you can just go ahead and hurry up and get everything over that you can or need to, get all the vehicles, emergency vehicles or whatever.
So we mentioned this was the third year on a 3-year contract with the city of Chicago. There is an option for 2 more years on this contract, but the city has to meet with NASCAR again to go over that. The talk is that a street race is going to go to San Diego next year. Is it going to be a replacement of this? Is it going to be an addition to this? The only thing I will say, and you mentioned it at the top of the show when we were describing this race, is compared to, other famous street course races from, Formula One to IndyCar, this puts on probably the best show. Yeah. Just the way and it's and you look at it, it's an extremely simple layout. but it has a
Uh-huh.
lot of really great passing zones, a lot of great straightaways where you can get up to speed and then into a big braking zone. So I will be sad to see it go if it does. The city itself seemed to embrace it a little bit better, yet then you immediately had local media columnists this morning come out with a negative column saying, hopefully it's over. We don't need you here. We like stick and ball sports better. Goodbye. So that's unfortunate that it wasn't fully embraced, I would say. But watching the spectators, I mean, I think there was more than ever this year because of the weather holding out. It's
Yeah.
cool seeing people climb up on top of whatever they could do just to
Yeah.
see the race. It looked
In the
pretty
trees.
packed where you could for me. So, but I just thought the racing overall was good. So, yeah, just one last. So, would you want this to stay on the schedule in addition to a second street race, or do you think that's too much of an oversaturation already?
It's interesting. Like somebody was in this discussion yesterday, today about too many street races, road courses, too much of it, too much of that, and I think that person or those people that feel that way are looking at this all wrong. Something I heard Jeff Gluck talking about over their podcast was, don't you want the sport to grow? And I think that what we're looking at is things that they're trying to do things to help the sport grow. And you get to new places, doing new things, new tracks, street course, all those types of things are, trying to bring new eyeballs in. They're trying to bring more people in, Somebody calls F1 the parade sometimes, because sometimes it can be like that, where they're just like in a line and parade. But you know what's happening with F1 in this country? Tons of younger people are watching F1. And why is that? What is there about it? So we're trying to explore those kind of things as a sport to continue our sport growing. We could race the same 5 to 10 tracks and kind of, be boring after a while because, that's what the old guard wants. But the reality is that we go someplace new here for a year or two and try this out for 2 or 3 years. And maybe something sticks too. Maybe you go to San Diego and it just ends up being a big thing. And then all of a sudden San Diego is the place to be every year. You don't know, but you've got to keep trying these different things. And I think growing the sport is the biggest part of it. If you're, one of those people who's, once again, who's going to tell us about how so great 25 years ago, I'm glad that you loved it 25 years ago, but there are a lot of newer people, and we're trying to bring new people in. I'm the old guy should be on the porch going, "Oh, get off my lawn," but I'm not. I'm just like everybody, the younger crowd. I want to see them try this out. These guys should be able to drive every discipline, and that's the other cool part about it. You talk about Shane coming in and doing what he's doing. Well, he's still learning the other parts, though. Whereas guys like Ryan have been doing this for years and years and years, and they're improving. They're getting better, right? Because they're doing it more and more and more. These people, there are a lot of people want to go back to 2 road courses. There's Sonoma and Watkins, but then they raced like, what was it, Riverside back in the day. They forget this is a sport that was built on moonshiners, right? Racing in the backwoods of North Carolina and South, right? That's the way it should be. These guys, this car was developed actually based off of a road course kind of car. So, the more and more we do it, I think the more and more exciting it is. So if it adds another race or 2 to the year and it's a road course and a street course, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it, trying different things.
Yeah, I mean, I as much as I just did say that I love the layout, I love how racy it is. I don't think there should be 2 on the schedule. I think there should be 1. I don't think it should rotate. I do think they need to do 2 and 3 year stops at each city. You'll hear this if you listen to the teardown. They say a place needs to kind of build momentum and then maybe get out of there before it's, they're there a year longer than they should be. So I wouldn't mind that if the NASCAR street race is a concept, just kind of moves around. It goes to San Diego, it goes to Seattle, it goes to Philadelphia, some other places that could grow things. And I like that what others have talked about, the fact that the sport does need to grow into different demographics and areas. Listen, while it's been a few years, and NASCAR has done a lot, I think, to actually please the traditional fan. They brought 2 races back to Atlanta. They brought 2 races back to Darlington. They brought an all-star race to North Wilkesboro and totally revived a track that was dead. They brought Rockingham back, at least for the Xfinity and Truck Series. We don't know if it's back again next year. They've done a lot to appease that southeastern U.S. fan that only wants to see ovals and their traditional blue-collar drivers, and we don't care about California and road course racing. So why is it such a big deal for them to try something with 1 or 2 races out of a 38 race schedule when you include the 2 extra races that they have? So why is it a bad thing to try something for a couple of weeks? Yeah, if you're going to be that fan that says, I'm not interested, I'm not tuning in, that's fine. It's okay. We know you are anyway. So I mean,
Like,
it is what it is.
like,
So
like my wife says, it's not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure. You're not going to watch anymore. That's fine. Guess what? We're probably going to gain 5 more fans to our 1 loss. Okay, 5 more younger fans who are going to be around for another 20, 25 years while you quit watching. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry that you feel that way. That NASCAR died whenever when Dale died and all that kind of stuff. But you're still paying attention right now, and you're making those calls. So maybe you don't like it, but it's still, in your mind, and you're still watching to some extent.
Yeah. Now, do we need 6 road and street course races? I mean, I don't know. I'm fine with like around 4 or so. But I say that and then not wanting to lose like the Roval. I'm like one of the maybe few people that actually really likes the Roval. I know it gets a lot of hate. I think there's a really good chance that COTA comes off the schedule sooner rather than later. But I would like to see, like, if we're talking about rotations, I wouldn't mind seeing rotations of road courses over years. Like, let's go back to Road America, where you're getting 100,000 people to show up because they want to see NASCAR. Let's go to some places like that, but maybe we don't go every year, so it does build up that demand.
The Roval, one thing about the Roval, and this is the complaint my wife has about the other road courses. One thing about the Roval that's super is you get a decent seat in the place, and you can see everything that happens. You can see all the passing at the different places on the track. Whereas Road America is a good example of that too, where you're sitting in a spot and then you see them go by, and that's another 2.5 minutes roughly, and then they come by again. And then you're counting cars to figure out where your guy was and did he gain a position. It's a little bit rougher for going to the event, But the Roval, I think, is great just for that reason.
Yeah.
It's all ready.
And 100% why I've been to the Roval multiple times. And when they raced on the Daytona road course, we shot over there too, because you can see everything if you have a good enough seat. So I can see that for sure. So again, Ryan Blaney finishes in P12 for Team 12 in the Chicago street race. And because William Byron is in such a disastrous stretch of the year, and honestly, the top 10 overall has been on such a roller coaster ride that Ryan Blaney has been gaining points back despite having 6 DNFs, 3 more than anybody else in the top 10. And is still sitting in the 7th position overall, 93 points back of the leader. He gained 30 plus points this weekend because he won a stage and because he had a solid finish. He was 127 points back of the leader going into this weekend after finishing 40th or whatever at Atlanta. So it's incredible that over this stretch, he's gained points somehow while having a lot of adversity along the way and not having a top 10 or top 5 finish, but he did get the stage win in that playoff point. So William Byron, who had no shot, super fast car in practice, destroys the car, has clutch issues in the race, makes 1 lap, thought he was running away with this regular season championship, but he is not now. The top 5 has condensed here. William Byron is in first, just 13 points over Chase Elliott, 19 points over Kyle Larson in third. Here's a little bit of a gap here, 43 to Denny Hamlin, who missed a race. This is how crazy the top 10 is with just the way people's seasons have been going. 67 points is back is Christopher Bell, who's won 3 races this year, but he's behind a guy that's missed a race. Ryan Blaney, again, is in 7th, 93 points back. So the top 5 is within reach now which I didn't think was possible. I thought maybe 6 is possible, but I think 5th is possible if they have no more DNFs and they have solid stage points the rest of the regular season. That's asking a lot in a sport that can be chaotic at times and where things can be taken out of your own hands. Ross Chastain is in 9th, 142 points back. So Ryan has a really big cushion between 7th and 8th, between 7th and 8th. 9th is Chase Briscoe, 150 back. And in 10th is Alex Bowman, who moves back up into the top 10 here, 152 points back. The only thing I want to mention, I talked a little bit about whether you wanted to talk about the Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman situation. That was really one of the first times all year during this, or all of the stretch during this bracket challenge situation, where a battle was like fought really hard to the end, and maybe not even necessarily because of that, but maybe it was because this is whittling down to where it's becoming more realistic for you as a driver to see that $1 million payday out the windshield. All I got to say is, going into this, if Bubba Wallace would have just let the 48 go by, he'd be 22, 23 points to the good right now on the cut line, instead of just a couple of points on the cut line, which could dramatically impact his season as soon as we get another winner before the end of the regular season. So sometimes as a driver, and again, this says the guy that's sitting in his office with a bunch of diecast around him. That's as close as he's getting to a race car. I think sometimes as a driver, you just need to know the bigger picture. And I mentioned to you, I was like, maybe, if we ask some of our spotter friends, like, where that incident was happening and whether that was in a radio dead zone or something, I'm like, where was Freddie, like, to tell him, like, big picture, and maybe that was in a spot where they couldn't relay that message. But man, it just hurts me because I'm a big Bubba Wallace fan. I think he's a great guy in and out of the car. But in these situations where he's going to be judged harshly because of who he is, sometimes he can't get out of his own way. Whether or not I think he should have to worry about that or not, it's just true. And I'm like, man, Bubba, just settle down and you'll be in a much better position. But it was exciting. It added some excitement. There is some videos of their post-race talk, which I thought was one of those weird conversations where they're both smiling and gesturing, but I'm like, I think they're doing that, but they're actually saying some mean things to each other. But we don't really know.
I don't know.
We'll see.
There were quotes afterward attributed to them that seemed like they were fine. So I don't know about that part.
But it was the bracket challenge meant something this weekend.
Yeah, that's a fun thing too. Is like, now we're getting down to there's eight guys, right? So, and this is for $1 million. And Ty Dillon was the 32 seed, and he's still sitting there, And then you got guys like Priest and Zane Smith. Zane Smith still has a chance here. And somebody from, this is a great thing, somebody from Legacy is going to make it to the Final Four, because you got Nemechek and Jones going against each other this week coming up. So, and I think the NASCAR Fantasy will make all 4 of these the matchups next week too. So I'm still watching it. Sure, my bracket blew up or whatever, but I'm still kind of excited for somebody to win $1 million who doesn't have any other way of winning that $1 million. Be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's succeeding really well in creating storylines. I think maybe NASCAR wants to rethink where it falls in the season, just to keep fans more engaged on their own brackets, because everybody's bracket is dead now. It blew up, I think, 1 or 2 races in. So that's the only thing, if they're going to improve, is to try to get it to where there's a more reasonable stretch leading into it, to where maybe there are some that are still perfect after a couple weeks. But it's created this new storyline, like you're saying. There's a handful of guys here that would never have a chance to win something like this that do now.
I don't think they can do that unless they change the schedule, flip the schedule totally, because it was intended for this 5-race stretch. The TNT has the races, because TNT is picked up the ball and ran with it, and has a separate channel on True TV that covers nothing but the matchups during the race. So I think this was all pre-set up ahead of time, that during TNT segment of the season, they're going to have this. So they'll have that special interest during the dog days of summer, when sometimes, it gets a little bit kind of, well, these guys are, way out in the lead and so forth. So I think what kind of sucks is that the SVG didn't make the final 32 to begin with. Because he'd
Yep.
be right in the middle of this right now, just licking his chops for the next couple of weeks.
So you and Kate have been doing some weeknight shows. So if you guys do happen to put one together on Wednesday, I'm sure you'll talk a little bit about the bracket along with some other things.
Yeah.
But if not,
Yeah.
we'll catch up on it on our weekly podcast here on Monday night. So that wraps up most of our talk about the Chicago street course race, except for we do have to talk about NASCAR Fantasy Live. And I have an interesting story to tell about this week. And I'll go through my lineup. You can go through yours. We'll talk about it. So my starting lineup, I had Daniel Suarez, got me 8 points. AJ Allmendinger got me 31 points. Alex Bowman got me 36. Ty Gibbs, 35. Michael McDowell, 15. Luckily, he won that first stage to get me something. In the garage, a guy that was at home in perfect Wi-Fi watching the race, didn't make a change. I made a change. Shane Van Gisbergen in my garage. I left 40 points in the garage. I don't know. I want an FBI investigation into this because I don't know what happened. I purposely went into the app to make a change after that early crash to take Daniel Suarez out of my lineup when it was clear he was just limping around in the back. So my goal was to take Suarez out of the lineup and put my garage guy in. I finished the race, think I'm in good position. I look, and I have Shane Van Gisbergen in the garage. I don't know if it was just a total brain malfunction. I was talking to you, like theorizing. I'm like, were they just talking about Shane so much when I popped the app open that I just clicked his name and made the switch and didn't think about it? Anyway, turns out I think a lot of people had great lineups and it didn't matter because the 40 points weren't going to put me into the top 10 or anything. Featured matchups, I had Bowman over Wallace. That ended up being right with some punches thrown on the track, not off the track. AJ Allmendinger, I had over Ty Gibbs. That was wrong. I had Buescher over Zane Smith. That was wrong. Buescher had a really strong car, but was down on engine power. I think he could have been a contender. And I had Reddick over Hocevar, and that was right. That was good for only 145 points on the day. And my second worst day on the year, I think, 74th overall in the league. Yeah.
Ouch. I've had strange things like that happen before too, so I can't really say much. But yeah, I had Daniel and hurried up, put him in the garage right away. So, and then I had Buescher with 19 points. I had Ty Gibbs got 35. I had Bell with 14 because he's spinning himself out. But then I had Shane for 40, and then I had Tyler Reddick, who was actually 51 points because he did really well with the stage points. So the matchups, I had Bubba and lost that one. I had Gibbs, I did get that one right. I had Buescher, and Zane beat him. And then I had Reddick over Hocevar. That was a gimme, I guess, after the first couple laps. So, overall, it wasn't real bad. I wasn't where I want to be, but I didn't lose much ground in the overall standings either. So,
So you end up finishing in the 46th position overall, 179 points. Kate Mez, 45th, 180. So she beat you by a point on the weekend in the household. So congrats to her.
Yeah, not bad.
Take a look at the top 10 in the overall points earned this past week in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And we have a tie for 10th between Blaney Biffle Martin, 96, and Fike 21 at 206 points on the weekend. A tie for 8th between Jackson, 12, and Blaney Kicks Beep at 207 points. 7th was RF Blaney, 12, 211 points. Tie for 5th between former champ Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing and Matt O, 212 points earned. In 4th, we had Moose Hunter, 1960, 216 points. And then we had a three-way tie for the win on the weekend between Moose Hunter, 1960, Sam's Speedsters, and Team Blaney Superfan, Joe Bro, 1221. Win the weekend at the Chicago Street Race. So like I said, I think a lot of people out there did have some really solid lineups on the weekend and took advantage of it. So congrats to those three on winning the weekend in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And let's take a look at the overall standings in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I am falling even further. This is bad. 72nd overall. Team Blaney host Adam, 3,072 points. You're still doing well. 10th overall, Moose Hunter 1960, 3,531 points. 9th, Penske Fan 24, 3,533. Mez 12, your team, 8th, 3,538 points. 7, Go 12 Go, 3,542. 6 is hashtag LGM, 3,562. Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing is hanging around in the top 5, 3,618 points. In 4th, it's Pit Stop Pro, 3,624. 3rd is Alyssa C, 3,625 points. Jordan Daniels in 2nd, 3,655. And continuing for the second straight week, Vans 12 is in the lead overall, 3,698 points. And that's where we sit right now in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League as we head to another road course with the NASCAR Cup Series, and that is at Sonoma this weekend out there in California. Things for the NASCAR Cup Series kick off on Saturday, July 12th, with practice at 1:35 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch practice on True TV, and I also believe streaming on Max. 2:40 p.m. Eastern Time, you have qualifying on True TV. The NASCAR Xfinity Series Pit Boss Food Max 250 from Sonoma is at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch that on the CW network. Sunday, July 13th, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you have the Toyota Save Mart 350 from Sonoma. You can watch that on TNT on cable Max with streaming, either the race itself or the in-car cameras, on the radio with PRN and Sirius XM NASCAR radio. Ryan Blaney at Sonoma Raceway, 8 starts, average start of 14th, average finish of 15.4, 1 career lap led, top 10s, he has 5 of them, not too shabby, and one of those was a top 5. Last several starts here in the next gen era, he finished 6th, 31st, and 7th. So of all the road courses in the next gen era, probably Ryan's best statistically. We mentioned last week, I didn't update the standings, but overall in his career, he has an average finish on road courses of about 15th and an average finish in the next gen era on road courses of about 17th. But if there was one on the schedule that where Ryan has had some success, it's definitely this road course. And the way he's run at Mexico, the way he's run at Chicago, I don't expect them to qualify up front. I'm hoping he qualifies in the top 15. But I think he'll be able to race his way into the top 10 by the end of stage 1 and ideally get some stage points. Or if they have a car that's good enough, you'll see Jonathan Hassler roll the dice and try to take the track position and set up an opportunity to go out and win the race. I'm not expecting them to go out and win this race, but the way they've been running, if they can put a race together where they don't face adversity, where he doesn't get into the wall, there's not a ton of walls to contend with here. There's a lot of runoff areas and stuff where you can get in trouble, though. So if he can have a clean race, start to finish, I think he can add to this top 10 and top 5 stat that he has going at Sonoma.
Well, the one thing you forgot about when you're talking about all that is he is in Group 2. And if he would have been in Group 2 in Chicago, he would probably have started inside the top 10 pretty easily. So same thing here. He will be in Group 2 as long as the practice itself goes well. I see him being inside the top 10 to start. Maybe even the top 5, just being on the fact that he will be in Group 2. You know, Shane will be in Group 2 after his finish this week, and he should jump up there. But yeah, I see it like where it should be a good start, and it should change strategy, and they're going to be able to race the race a little bit differently. You know, you saw it on the racing analytics guy put out the thing with the everybody. Weekend, Ryan was the 8th, would have been finished 8th if they ran all the and on the lead lap, 8th over a complete race. So I just see that kind of thing and building that momentum as the week goes.
Taking a look at the race last year, Kyle Larson went to victory lane, followed by Michael McDowell, who could have been a contender this past week at Chicago. Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain rounded out the top 5. Allmendinger was 6th. Again, Blaney was 7th. Tyler Reddick 8th. Christopher Bell 9th. And then some surprises here. Todd Gilliland finished 10th. Corey LaJoy, who won't be in the race, finished 11th. Kyle Busch 12th. Brad Keselowski 13th. Daniel Suarez 14th. Alex Bowman 15th. And quite honestly, that top 15 outside of a couple surprises were all the guys that you see running out front and winning stages on road courses here. So if we're thinking about guys to look, I need some help here, clearly, in fantasy. Some guys to look out for this weekend. Kyle Larson, though, maybe this is the week that he, since he ran the Indianapolis 500, while he's run okay most of the time, he's had a lot of trouble. He's not been the same Kyle Larson. Is this the week he turns around and goes back to victory lane? He's a great road course racer, just hasn't had it the last few weeks. McDowell, I look for the Spire cars to qualify up front like they have at a lot of races this year. If he doesn't have a throttle issue, it was a weird issue this past week where like the cable frayed or something. Totally took that race out of his hands. Chris Buescher went to victory lane last year in a duel at Watkins Glen with SVG. He finished well here last year. Another great road course driver. Chase Elliott's just super consistent. Chastain usually just finds his way up to the front in most races by the end of the race. Allmendinger is another one to look for. I don't have a ton of Blaney starts left, but to me, the names I'm looking at are McDowell, Buescher, Reddick. Christopher Bell's been weird. He's in a weird stretch here too, where he's fast, but he's been spinning out a lot at different types of tracks. So that's some execution things. Somebody really that I think might just decide this is the week to turn his luck around is William Byron, who was fastest in practice at Chicago and then stuffed it into the fence, trying to get a little bit more for some reason. Yeah. And then we just had bad luck with the mechanical issue in the race. So I would not be surprised to see Byron turn things around this week. He's won on road courses in the past. So we'll see what they can do. So, but again, I'm hoping for a nice, solid top 10 stage point. If they have an opportunity to win a stage like they did this past week at Chicago, finish for Team 12. And if you can keep chipping away, trying to move up in the regular season point standings to keep earning some more bonus points at the reset, I'll be totally pleased with this upcoming weekend in wine country. Yeah,
let's get to by the end of the regular season, let's get to the top 5, so you get those, like I said, those extra bonus points for the playoff points. But yeah, I'm me, I'm always I'm just optimistic as heck. I don't know, not during the race, my wife will tell you, but at least right now, I'm pretty optimistic of the weekend, and I can't wait to see what Saturday brings and then what Sunday brings. Being in that second group of practice really does make a huge difference, as we've seen it. With all the DNFs this year, we've seen what happens when he's in the second group. He is fast as some of the guys in the first group, but they're on the track. They're clean. The track isn't totally cleaned up yet, and of all the rubber, and it kind of makes it bad. So, second group, let's see what he does this weekend.
So again, if you want to tune in this weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series at Sonoma Raceway, Saturday, July 12th, 1:35 p.m. Eastern Time on True TV. You can watch practice. 2:40 p.m. Eastern Time. There's qualifying from Sonoma, also on True TV. Again, Max, PRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio. Sunday, though, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You have the Toyota Save Mart 350 from Sonoma. TNT on cable. Max on streaming. PRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio on the radio. I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode of the Team Blaney podcast. Thank you, everyone, once again for tuning in. During the week and on race day, you can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and our YouTube channel. Again, shout out to our YouTube channel. If you go on there, you'll find all of our race recaps from the season. You'll find a series of in-depth interviews we've had with several members of Team 12 and multiple interviews with Ryan Blaney himself. So check those out on YouTube. Just search for Team Blaney. We'd also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, City of Westminster. Check out the TikTok.